what's up YouTube? Jeremiah Hersey here. Welcome back to the next PL300 test prep question. Today we're going to be talking about ways to transform data or combine data. As we look at this, there's a couple things as always that we need to kind of discuss and go over so you have an understanding of what the question is asking. So let's go ahead and get started in the Power Query Editor. So here we are inside the Power Query Editor, and one of the first things that I want to talk about is the Transpose function inside of the Power Query Editor. So you see that we have this set of 4 columns here with events, participants, and cost. And so the first function that I want to talk about for transforming data is this Transpose function. So what Transpose does is it takes the columns and turns them into rows and the rows into columns. And so it essentially flips your table 90 degrees. And so what we want to do here is we want to get events in this first column and then participants and the costs inside of 3 columns. And so what we're going to do is we're going to choose this transpose column. So what it does is it just flips the data 90 degrees. And so if I select transpose here, you're going to see that it then transforms my data so that I have my events in one column, participants in the next, and cost in the third. And so that's what transpose does. It essentially just flips your data 90 degrees. It turns columns into rows and rows into columns. So that's the first data manipulation tactic, is transposing your data. The next one that we're going to talk about is the group by. So group by is a way to essentially aggregate your data based on a specific metric. And so here in this table we have our year, our country, and our associated sales. So with this, let's say that we want to group by the country. So we want to see the total sales for USA and the total sales for Canada. So to do this, we're going to choose a group by function. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to right click on our country column, and we're going to go down here to where it says group by. Now there's several ways to access this group by function. I feel like this is the easiest way. So what we're going to tell it is we want to group by the country, and we just want to sum up the total number of sales. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to select group by. A UI is going to appear, and because I right clicked on the country column, it already is recognized, hey, we're going to group by country here, and then we have to choose our aggregation. And so this is where we choose our aggregation, where it says operation. Right now it's defaulted to count rows. So I'm going to say this is sum of sales, and I'm going to change the operation to be a sum, and then we have to choose the column. And so the column we're going to choose is our sales column, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. What this does now is it creates a grouped information. So we have USA and we have total sales of 8,500, and for Canada we have 5,500. So the group by function allows you to group based on a specific metric and an aggregation as well. Now the other 2 ways of transforming your data, but we also want to know how to combine data as well. So let's take a look at the append. So append is a way to combine data that has the same column names and same column structure. So you'll see here in this append 1 table, we have the name, the carrier, and the average cost. And the difference between these 2 tables are going to be this carrier column. So this carrier column is AT&T, and as we look at our append 2, we're going to notice it's the same column names, same column types. The only difference is the carrier. And so as we want to combine this data, we essentially want one table that is going to have all of this information. So the average cost and the carrier and the name of the person. The purpose of this would be to be able to filter by carrier within inside of the same table. So we'll have both Verizon and AT&T in the same table. And so if you go to the Home tab at the top, and we're going to select Append Queries. So here's Append Queries right here. Now you have two options. You can either append the queries together into one table, or you can create a new table that has the appended information. You can also think of this as a SQL union. So we're just going to bring those tables together. And so I'm going to select Append Queries here. And it's going to ask me what two tables that we want to append. So because I'm on the Append To table, we're going to select Append 1, and you can see that it tells us, hey, this is the current one, and this is the one that we want to append together. And so we're going to append these together, and we're going to click OK. And now we have all the same information, so the carrier, average cost, and the name, but it's within the same table. So this is going to allow us to use things such as a slicer to be able to filter between the different carriers here. So that is an append. So same column names, same column structure, just different information within inside of them. We're going to combine them together. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about here today is a merge. So a merge is used when you have two different tables. All right, so in my first table here, I have the name of the person, I have the carrier, and they have a customer ID associated to them. In this second table, the merge to table, I have just a customer ID and average cost. So what I want to do is I want to identify what's known as a key column. This is the column that is the same between both of the tables. And so you'll notice here that customer ID here is going to be what's known as our key column. This is going to be the column that we're going to use to merge the two tables together. So when you're trying to combine data, two different tables, and combine them into one, you have to identify the key column between the tables, which is, for us, it's going to be the customer ID. So I'm going to select my merge one table, and I'm going to go up here to the merge queries option. Once again, we have the option to merge with inside the table that we're in, or create a new table with the merged information. We're just going to merge directly into this first table. And so I'm going to select merge queries. It's going to ask me to select the table. And so the table that I'm going to select is going to be done through this drop down right here. And so I'm going to select my merge to table. Now, what you have to do is select the column that you're going to use to combine the data. So I'm going to select the customer ID from both tables. We'll talk about the join kind in another video, but for right now, we're just going to leave this as a left outer join. Essentially, it takes the first table, and anything that matches from the second table is going to be brought over, and we're simply going to click OK. This now puts a new table within inside of our merge one table. If you select the cell, you can see a preview of the data down below. So we'll see that that's associated to customer ID of 1 and the average cost. And so what we're going to do is we're going to expand this table. And the only thing that we need to bring back is the average cost here, because customer ID is already in the table. And so when I click OK, you're now going to see all pieces of information within inside of the table. We have our name, our carrier, and now we're able to see the average cost that is associated to that customer ID. And so when we're merging information, we have to have that key column. And for us, once again, in this example, was the customer ID. So now that we have an understanding of what we're going to be looking at, let's take a look at our question. So it says you import two Microsoft Excel tables named customer and address into the Power Query. Customer contains the following column, customer ID, name, phone, email address, and address ID. And address contains the following column: the ID, the address, city, state, country, and postal code. Each customer represents a unique customer in the customer table. Each address ID represents a unique address in the address table. You need to create a query that has one row per customer, and each row must contain the city, state, region, and country for each customer. What should you do? So as we're thinking about the different options that we have here, so let's look at this one down here at the bottom, the append, right? So append is used when we have two of the same table. There's same column names, same column types, just different information. And so as we think about append and we look at the columns that are inside of each one of these tables, do they have the same column names and same column typing? And the answer is no, they do not. They're two different tables, different sets of information. So we can't just append these together because they're not the same information. As we think about transpose, remember transpose is just essentially taking your columns and turning them into rows, or rows into columns. And once again, we're trying to combine this data into one table. So the requirement here is that we have to have one row per customer. And so that tells us that we're going to be focused in on the customer table itself. But we need to bring the additional information over from address, which includes city, state, region, and the country. And so we're going to have to combine this data in some way. And so once again, as we look at our options here, the next one is group by the customer and address table by address ID. Well, just because we grouped them, we saw that when we were talking about what the group by does, it just essentially aggregates the data in some way. It doesn't actually combine it. So aggregating this with a group by doesn't give us what we need to answer this question. And so last option here is to look at option A, the merge. So remember, in order to merge tables together, we need to know what the key column is, or the column that is the same between both of the tables. And so as we look inside of our columns, we have address ID that is the same in both of these tables. So these tables, different information, but they have a relationship, and that is the key column, the address ID. And so as we saw with the merge example previously, we can take all of the information that's brought over in the merge. And so using this address ID as the key column, we can retrieve our requirements, which is city, the state, region, and the country. And so the correct answer for this particular question would be to merge the customer and address tables, once again using that key column, the address ID, in order to bring that data over. I want to thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content. I'll see you in the next one.